The series is good. It's damn good. And I have no idea why I didn't watch it any sooner. Actually, never mind. I do have some idea. First off, how many of you watched this series and had no idea what the hell League of Legends actually was? I wouldn't be surprised if there were a lot of you like that out there. And I envy you because you guys are the lucky ones. For me, I'm quite the opposite. The first time I started playing League was in 2013. I'm still playing it. But being, I guess you could call somewhat of a veteran League player, you learn to love and hate the game and the company, Riot Games, throughout the years and through all of the bullshit that they put you through. From the balancing team to the stupid prestige point system when it first got released and the money grabbing incentives, it's clear that the way they do things aren't always going to satisfy some people, which is why at one point I was like, I'm not supporting anything from this game or company ever again, which is why I also didn't really bother with this series when it first got released like 4 to 5 months ago. But I completely forgot that this is one of those rare games that's more than just a game. There's the game, and then there's this whole entire fantasy world just built around it that makes the game just look like a fucking idiot. Like, what is this? Fucking 5 idiots trapped on an enclosed place doing the same thing every match? That's what that is. And they have dumb asses like this guy who just make you feel like a piece of shit. While the game is sometimes frustrating and just completely dumb, the cinematics on the other hand have always been good. Even back in 2013 when the Jinx MV was made. I still remember watching that back then and being like, wow. Actually, I think I was like that when I watched all the cinematics back in the day. And back then, I was like to myself, wouldn't it be insane if they like made a movie or something like that? Fast forward to 2021, after countless cinematics and comments from people wanting more, and bam, the first ever series just got released to Netflix. And I gotta say, the future is looking bright if you're a fan of Arcane, and most people are. Now, I was already going into Arcane with high expectations because it literally got a 9 or 10 out of 10. Like, people loved it. And you know what? I'm more of the same. However, it's not perfect, and maybe that's due to the fact that I know League, so I was coming into this with like even higher expectations. But honestly, I only really have just one key complaint and maybe a few minor ones, which I'll get to a bit later. Everything else though is pretty fucking good. This show mainly tells the story of sisters Vi and Jinx who grew up in the rough and undercity of Zorn, where people would do anything for a living, and we get to learn how they grew up into the characters we all know and love today. And being someone who knows the lore of League of Legends quite well, like most fans of the game do, or at least fans of this unique world and its characters, I was hoping this series would go a certain way in terms of Vi's and Jinx's relationship, because most of us already like kind of know what they turn out like, right? And it most certainly does, even though it might not be 100% accurate. It starts off quite slow, but manages to pick up quite quickly. At first, we kind of see like their upbringings, we get a pretty good chunk of that, and then we get a time skip, and then we see their current selves. And the emotion, the art style, animations, the music, the action, most aspects of this series has been done exceptionally well. This is truly an emotionally gripping series, but not only on one side of the story. This is the other thing I really loved. Learning about this world, seeing the distinction between the upper class and the lower class, the distinction between good and evil, and you learn to feel for both sides as they get almost an equal amount of screen time. I was very torn at like certain parts of this series, not really knowing which side to support, as you can see quite clearly like why they do what they do, especially with Vi and Jinx and their separate paths. Is it weird that I saw no real villain in this series? Like, because both sides showed their good and bad. In terms of the story, it's divided between the thriving progressive city of Piltover and the reckless undercity of Zorn. Both cities have their own kind of separate story, which I personally only really cared about Vi's and Jinx's story, not really about too much about what happened up in Piltover. It didn't really interest me all that much, except for one dire part of it, which has to do with a key character named Victor, which was a welcome surprise to kind of see him in it. But I feel like the main reason why is because it just ultimately felt unfinished. Hell, a lot of this show kind of feels this way, or rather I guess just this season. This whole season felt more of like the first half of season 1 because there's still a lot of questions left unanswered, which they will probably do that. They'll probably answer most of those in season 2 whenever that comes out. But that's not the main issue I have with this show though, or at least this season. The main issue I have mainly has to do with the time jump. I just feel like the distinction between their teenage years to young adulthood is very big. I wanted to know more about what happens between then. Like how Jinx gets her guns, how and why she changed so drastically, how Vi and Jinx get their tattoos, stuff like that. And in more of a visual sense, or a visual way, rather than having to picture it, have somewhat of an unclear idea in my head. For example, it just felt like Jinx gets her crazy all of a sudden and there's not really any visual evidence how or why. The jump just felt too big, but that I wouldn't have minded if there were some flashback moments in between, but there never really were. I guess I just wanted more because people, most people who play the game generally know the lore behind each of the characters, right? And we're all mostly familiar with how they are in their present selves. It's how they get there that's the most important thing and the most exciting thing. And I didn't really see too much of that during this series, or at least this season. I think the best part, of the most memorable part for me, was still the end of episode 3, that huge climax. Yeah. After that, it was mainly it went at a more slower pace, mainly about the journey, but yeah, just the whole time I was wondering what happened before. Regardless, this is still a great watch, and I feel like a continuous series is the best way to showcase this exciting world because there are just so many aspects, different ideals, countless characters, and exciting and vast environments to explore that a movie or 2 or 3 or however much just wouldn't cut it. Will you get anything out of this series if you aren't very knowledgeable about League of Legends? Probably, yeah, but obviously you will still get way more out of this if you know League, for instance the different characters and certain references as well. Only thing is, the characters' voiceovers aren't 100% accurate. I'm pretty sure they changed from the original voice actors, so it might not feel too right. At least for me, it didn't. But I am pumped. I'm still pumped for season 2, obviously. Hopefully they answer these cliff-hanging questions, and I'm also hoping there will be more characters as well, like Warwick, for example. That would be pretty fucking sick. But I mean, I'm also hoping they expand on this, into more series on different places, like Noxus or Demacia, for example. Or just even an open world story game on the lands of Runeterra. I just need more of this world, and I'm not even a fan of the game anymore. I'm going to give Arcane Season 1 a B+. I honestly don't feel like it does enough for me to give it an A grade, maybe an A- at best. Oh, and by the way, I just saw the new trailer for Stranger Things Season 4, a day ago or something like that. Shit looks good. Looking very forward to that. Oh man, I love Stranger Things. I also talked about that in my channel. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Like and sub if you enjoyed, and as always, feel free to check out any of my previous videos. Until next time.
Bye.